Green Party's co-leader denies being a hypocrite for opposing Labour's wind farm pylons. We're going to read into this exclusive from The Independent, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here, an exclusive from The Independent with the headline that the Green Party co-leader denies being a hypocrite for opposing Labour's wind farm pylons. The exclusive reveals that ahead of the Green conference in Manchester, the co-leader Adrian Ramsay said his party is the success story of 2024, not Nigel Farage's reform. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share this across social media so others are notified of this video. So I've read a little bit into this, and I'm aware of this story, obviously, because obviously I do try to keep an eye on the Green Party a lot more closely than some of the other parties. I wouldn't say that I would say it's both Greens and Reform are both success stories in 2024. I mean, both parties secured MPs. Reform got a third of the majority of a third of the votes in the general election. That speaks massive volumes. You can't deny that. You can't exclude that. They got votes in Wales. They got votes in Scotland. It didn't get them any MPs in those in neither of them, but they still got votes from them, and that speaks volumes for Reform. And a lot of because of what Reform came second in some places, obviously opens up the door for them in the future potentially gain more MPs down the road. That being said, still to say that the Greens obviously still had a successful campaign as well. They took a lot of votes as well. So they've had a great story as well as having 4 MPs as well. So it has been good for smaller parties, is the best way to to put it. Now, obviously, by the time you guys see this, the Green Party conference would have taken place, and a lot would have been said at that conference, which I'm sure I will cover at some point. But I really wanted to talk a lot about Adrian Ramsay's position here about opposing the wind farm pylons. And while I have listened to 1 or 2 different interviews, not just this one, I've listened to a few different interviews when he has responded to this. He hasn't really directly come across as to why he's the proper answer to it. And the reason why I say that is because his response, and what we're going to read into it in a moment, his response to this is basically saying we need to look at more options and not just one option here with the pylons. And my counter argument to him would be that while nobody likes having pylons being built around their homes, and that's totally understandably frustration, especially for people in constituencies nobody wants to see pylons being built around their houses. Absolutely, it is also one of the cheapest options, and we have to keep reminding ourselves that as much as we want to look at better options without the need to actually building these pylons, we're in a situation where money is tight. Yeah, and I know nobody likes that rhetoric. Nobody doesn't like the fact that the country is in a state, but that is the reality as well. So I don't think it was wise, in my opinion, for him to oppose the wind farm pylons, in my opinion, given the severity of the situation that we are in. But I'll read into this and give more as we go along, guys. And this is coming from someone that's very much in favour of a lot of green policies. I would have edited that out. The co-leader of the Green Party has defended himself after the Labour government tried to portray him as a hypocrite on clean energy infrastructure. So in an interview with The Independent ahead of his party's conference in Manchester this weekend, that this has come out, Adrian Ramsay dismissed the personal claims made against him by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, amongst others. The debate has centred around objections to pylons being built through the picturesque Waveney constituency, which straddles the Norfolk-Suffolk border in East Anglia. The 114-mile scheme is expected to run from Norwich to Tilbury in Essex and would transfer energy generated from offshore wind farms to South East and London. Labour used the row to portray the Greens as hypocrites who really opposed the green energy infrastructure needed to move Britain's clean energy supply from carbon-based fuel, including coal and oil, to clean alternatives. And that is true. It does come across like that to me. Sir Keir said it was extraordinary that Mr Ramsay was opposing vital clean energy infrastructure. But Mr Ramsay told The Independent the debate is really about Labour seeking to do things easy and avoid the difficult things. The plan is to push ahead with erecting pylons in his rural constituency is one of the easy answers when other solutions are available, he claimed. He added, the question that you are highlighting is how do we connect wind farms that are in the North Sea to London and the South East where energy is needed, and there are a range of ways you can do that. Clearly, we need to connect the energy, but the last Tory and the current Labour government has just been pressing ahead with one option, which is to have a new route of pylons that go through East Anglia. There are a couple of other options. One would be to have an offshore grid that brings energy around the sea and into London that way. Another option would have underground cables for all of some of the routes. Now, this is the one I wanted to address here. So, this would cost more. Is the answer? Is the response I have for this? It would be much cheaper to build the pylons than it would be to simply go with the expensive ways of building it out in the sea and around London that way, or building underground cabling. Underground cabling is expensive. Yes, I would like nothing more than all the pylons that we have in the UK to be all put underground cabling so that we don't have to see them anywhere at all in our countryside or anywhere in the UK. I would love for that to be the case, guys, but realistically, like, we don't have the money for it. You know, we have to be realistic. I'd love that to be the case, but I'm very much understanding of this. Now, excuse me. There are obviously, he says there are a couple of other options. Well, those two options there, that in my opinion, from my perspective, they would cost more to do. But if he has a cheaper option than pylons, then I'll be more than open to listen to it. There are some other countries in Europe that have done both of these things. Some have gone offshore and some have gone underground as a preferred option. Yes, they have. And I absolutely agree with that. European countries have done that. But they cost more as well. It's really important to highlight. So all I've called for is there to be a proper options assessment of how best to do the connectivity in terms of environmental impact on communities' impact and on timescale. There's been no proper option assessment by the last government, and this government wants to press ahead with one option. Sir Ramsay, who has been advocating for renewable energies for the last 20 years, points out that he's working cross-party with other East Anglian MPs and councils making the same arguments. But he also thinks the easy answers claim against Sir Keir's new government can be made on wider issues too, as climate crisis continues. Describing Labour's first 2 months in power, he said they're not ambitious enough on the environment. They're focusing on decarbonising electricity, which is easier bit to do. Decarbonising heating, reducing energy use in home, in transport, supporting the restoring of nature, and the fact that they have one of the most nature-depleted countries in Earth, they're just not focused on it. In fact, I was absolutely gobsmacked that they cut from the nature-friendly farming budget. Only a couple of weeks ago, there was a report came out that showed that the funding was just starting to have an impact, and that nature charities were calling for it to be doubled. On social issues, they added there was no need for that. There was no need for the axing of the winter fuel payments for pensioners. I've stated this in previous and other live streams and whatnot. I've said they did not need to axe in the winter fuel payments, in my opinion, and I still stand by those comments. He also believes that his party's rattled Labour by breaking the credibility power and quadrupling its seats in the last election, winning almost 77% of the vote, which makes a more serious alternative on the left. I mean, they have a voice in Parliament now, a lot bigger voice in Parliament with 4 MPs, but I wouldn't say that they've rattled Labour yet. I don't think that's the right word. They've definitely had an impact at the general election, without a shadow of a doubt, and they're definitely having a voice. But there's still too much. There's still far too much to come in the future. Still, his co-leader Carl Denya beat Labour's frontbencher Fagan Debonair in Bristol Central. I've covered this extensively as the party held off Labour's challenge in the Brighton Pavilion. Also won Waveney and North Hertfordshire of the Tories. He said during the election there was a clear sense that people were far more open-minded about how they were going to vote than the previous elections. Not only that, we have passed a credible barrier that people's willingness to vote Green at a general election meant it was much easier to make the case this time around. We think that because we've shown we've got the credibility in local government with over 800 Green councillors in England and Wales. This is a very important point. This is something that Reform do not have, and they are lacking councillors. There are many councillors in Green councillors in England and Wales. When I was deputy leader 15 years ago, I knew all the Green councillors around the country. We worked really hard to get to 100 now. It's something that's happening at scale. While many headlines amid the vote to Nigel Farage and Reform UK believes the Greens have a real breakthrough party of 2024 election in the long term, even though they got one less seat and around half the votes. The big difference with Reform's electorate is that we have a consistent basis of council support across the country, where we've been winning large number of votes in local elections year in, year out across all corners of the country. So our support in the general election is on firm foundations because it builds on that success in our council members. He pointed to the Greens Party's much success at local elections this year, saying that I think I'm right in saying their strategy is the same as it was under UKIP, which is to have a lot of general election campaign efforts and don't see what it delivers you. I don't think that that's the sustainable way to maintain people's trust and confidence that show you could be a due diligent local representative, and people do want that first and foremost from their MPs. Interesting stuff there from him. It'll be interesting that obviously I will obviously try to cover the conference a little bit when it's all said and done at some point, either in a video or in a live stream, just to kind of talk about what the ambitions and the goals that they have in the future. I'm still recovering from my throat infection, in case people why I'm still not 100%, in case people just out of curiosity wonder. But what I will say is obviously I still think that Adrian did not I don't think it was ideal to oppose the Pylons without having a credible alternative, and in my opinion the alternatives that he's put there are more cost more, in my opinion. That's and I just don't think it's ideal right now. Yes, I would love, like I've said, we have to look at while of course we need to transition to green energies, and everyone is in agreement with that. Both Labour and the Green Party are both in agreement on that. The problem is that, when it comes to pylons, I absolutely don't like pylons being constructed, while at the same time I understand the needs for them, especially from a cost-effective point of view. Now, some people may argue in the comments that it's actually cheaper to put the cables underground than perhaps on pylons. If you want to show me statistics where they have been, feel free to pass them on in the comments below. But I don't think I personally think Adrian is in the wrong on this one. On this specific opposition of Labour's wind farm pylons, in my opinion, based on the arguments that he has made, only on the basis of basically costs, really. I understand his point, but I also don't think it's one that's helpful, shall we say. But maybe some of you guys will vehemently disagree with me. Maybe you agree with Adrian that he's perfectly entitled to say that thing. And maybe some of you think that maybe I'm in the wrong on that. But let me know what you guys honestly think down in the comment section below. What do you guys think about their Green Conference, of what you've heard so far, of what he has been saying, what Denya has been saying, what other Green MPs have been saying since the general election? Let me know your thoughts and more down in the comments section below. If you found this video interesting or informative, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.